For 132 years, Algeria lived beneath a silence so heavy it seemed carved into the stones of its mountains. The wind crossing its deserts carried not just dust, but the muffled heartbeat of a people waiting, patiently, painfully, for the hour when history would remember their name. One autumn night in 1954, 6 men gathered in a humble apartment perched above the restless lights of Algiers. The lamp above their heads flickered as though aware of the weight of their decision. A map lay between them on a bare wooden table, creases like old scars, borders drawn and redrawn by hands that were not theirs. The men spoke softly, yet every word seemed to echo. Their decision, once sealed, vibrated across the room like a distant drum. November 1st. A date chosen not to begin a war, but to awaken a nation. When the night arrived, Algeria did not stir quietly, it erupted. Flames tore through the darkness of the oars, thunder rolled across the Casbah valleys, bridges collapsed into the void like severed chains. The first martyr fell before sunrise, and his blood, warm upon the cold earth, became the ink with which the opening chapter of freedom was written. Heroes emerged as if summoned from the very soil. Dead-edged Murad, barely beyond youth, stood in the mountains with a serenity that contradicted the roar of battle. Surrounded, wounded, outnumbered, he fought until the final breath left his chest. When the news reached Larbi Ben Mhidi, he murmured through the shadow of loss, "We have lost a lion, but the wilderness will birth many more." He was right. In the north, Zikhaud Youssef prepared a storm worthy of legends. The morning of August 20th, 1955, began with the stillness of prayer, and ended with the sky cracking open. The colonial retaliation was monstrous, a week-long darkness in which thousands of innocents were consumed. But from the ashes rose something France had not foreseen, a people who now understood that liberty, once glimpsed, is more intoxicating than life itself. Across the mountains, a gathering took place in a village whose name the world had never spoken, Ifer Ayu Zeligan. Under the watchful eyes of circling planes and relentless patrols, the revolution's leaders crafted not just a plan, but a philosophy. Guided by Abain Ramdane's keen mind, they forged unity, structure, and purpose. It was there, in a modest Kabyle home, that the outline of a future state first breathed. Far from the mountains, another kind of courage walked the streets of Algiers. Young women, students with bright eyes and quiet determination, entered European cafes with handbags hanging lightly from their arms. Hasaba, Jamila, Zara, their names would one day adorn the walls of history, but in those days, they moved like shadows. They placed their bombs with steady hands and departed with unhurried steps, leaving behind a tremor that reached the heart of France itself. And yet, it was Larbi Ben Mhidi who stood as the revolution's soul, calm, unbreakable, luminous even in chains. Captured after fierce resistance, he was taken to the grim villa Soussigny. Torture followed, as merciless as winter. But he, who believed that freedom is a light no darkness can extinguish, spoke nothing that could betray a single mountain or a single man. When they killed him, the occupiers claimed suicide. Algeria wept, not only for his death, but for the unbearable lie. In the Casbah's labyrinth, where sunlight barely touched the stone, another legend grew, Ali Lar Point. A young man once lost to the streets, he found purpose within the revolution's embrace. Bold to the point of recklessness, he became the embodiment of refusal. When the French forces surrounded the house that sheltered him, Hasaba, and a young boy, he did not offer surrender. They chose to die as the building collapsed around them, their spirits escaping the ruins long before their bodies were found. Then came the unprecedented act that startled the world, the kidnapping of a Moroccan plane carrying 5 leaders of the revolution, a gesture of desperation by an empire that could no longer understand the nation rising beneath it. Soon after, Algeria entered a sacred silence. For 8 days, shops remained closed, machines still, streets hollow. It was not fear, it was discipline. A nation fasting from the colonial rhythm, breathing only its own resolve. Beyond the mountains and cities, the revolution extended its hand into diplomacy. The provisional government, proclaimed in Cairo, gave Algeria a voice that resonated from Asia to Latin America. On the borders, Boumediene forged an army of disciplined sons, while France raised electric walls to halt their advance. Walls proved as futile as chains. In December 1960, children, fragile, fearless, poured into the streets with flags stitched by trembling hands. Their voices rose, not in rehearsed slogans, but in the instinctive cry of a people reclaiming their heartbeat. Algeria is ours. The world watched, stunned, as these young faces carried the revolution into global conscience. The colonial structure faltered. Generals rebelled. The OAS responded with blind fury, burning libraries, bombing schools, killing indiscriminately. Its violence, meant to break the Algerian spirit, only revealed its endurance. At last, in the quiet lakeside town of Evian, negotiators sat across from one another. Words sharpened, softened, collided. Days turned into weary nights. Finally, signatures were inked upon trembling paper. A chapter closed. Yet the OAS lashed out in its dying throes, setting fires that could not keep the dawn away. Then came July 1st, 1962. 6 million Algerians approached the ballot box with hearts heavy and luminous. When the results were announced, 99.72% for independence, joy erupted like a long-imprisoned sun rising at last. On July 5th, the flag rose over Algiers. Green, white, red, the colors of memory and sacrifice. On a balcony in the ancient Casbah, an old woman watched its fabric dance. She had lost her husband and 3 sons. Tears slipped down her cheeks as she whispered to the morning air, they are gone, but the homeland remains. The cost was immeasurable. Villages erased, families shattered, 1.5 million martyrs. But freedom, once paid for in such currency, becomes sacred. And Algeria emerged not merely as a sovereign state, but as a testament, a land unbroken, a people who transformed their suffering into destiny, their silence into a song that still echoes far beyond its shores.